One doctrine that's emphasized in the sutras and the Pali Canon is the doctrine of no self, in Sanskrit anatman, in Pali anatta. This is the doctrine that there isn't a substantial, lasting self. The claim is that what appears as a real, lasting entity, that is, yourself, really is only an ever-changing flow of what they call skandhas or khandhas, or aggregates. And the 5 aggregates are form, feelings, perceptions, volitions, and consciousness. And these latter 4 are all mental. They're mental states. They're types of experiences. And by form is meant basically physical structure. Some would translate that as corporality, bodily nature, you could say. A self, it turns out, is really nothing more than these. And these are momentary. They're different from one second to the next. But they present an illusion of a lasting and real self. Let me give you 2 of my own analogies, and then I'll tell you a couple of their analogies to explain what they mean by this. Have you ever made a flipbook cartoon? So you take the edge of your school book and you draw a little, let's say, stick figure. And on one page, he's doing this. And on the next page, he's doing this. On the next page, he's doing this. And so you flip the pages 1, 2, 3 really fast, and it looks like there's this guy who's raising his arm. Looks like his arm is going up, right? But there is no guy. All there is a little image on each page. When you view them all rapidly, it presents an illusion that there's this changing reality, that there's this guy who's raised his arm. But of course, there is no such guy. If you understand the little drawings on each page, that's all that there is. There isn't anything left over. Here's another analogy. Think about the Olympic torch fire. They start off the Olympic ceremonies by lighting a torch, and then athletes carry it through many cities until they get all the way to the Olympic facilities and they light the big torch. And that lit torch goes for days. And you might say, wow, that's the same fire that started off 100 miles away. No, it isn't. Fire is just a combustion process. It isn't a thing. There isn't any one thing sitting on the top of that torch that traveled 50 miles or whatever. Just at every single moment, there's a different combustion process. But they look similar, and they're causally connected to one another. And so you can sort of think of them as one lasting object, but they aren't really. It's just one combustion process after another. At each moment, there's something different there. A famous analogy they use in some early texts is the analogy of the chariot. They say the word chariot is merely a convenient designation. It refers, but not to some one thing. It refers to merely a collection of chariot parts. It refers to the wheels, to the axles that connect them, to the platform that sits on top of it, to the siding, and so on. Okay, that's not a very good chariot, but you get the idea. The chariot is nothing more than chariot parts. The basic concern here is the idea that belief in a self leads to your being concerned about yourself. It leads to lust, hatred, and delusion. Realizing that there isn't any self is supposed to free you from those things. Analyzing the self away into merely just these simple components, each of which is only momentarily existing, is supposed to help you with this. These flows of momentary form, feelings, perceptions, volitions, and consciousness play out according to the law of dependent origination, or they say dependent arising. The basic point of this is that everything that happens is both a cause and an effect. Everything's all connected by cause and effect, and you can control what occurs by noticing what causes what. There are a couple of different 12-part formulas about how this works. There's also a 10-fold version of it. I'm not going to expect you to know those, but it's ignorance of these things that is supposed to lead to this whole realm of suffering. And gaining this knowledge is supposed to help us get out of it. And we should add that because everything in samsara turns out really to just be those basic aggregates that we mentioned, and those are momentary things, then it turns out that everything is characterized by impermanence. Literally nothing lasts. You don't last. The processes that are going on right now, where you sit in your chair, those will cause further processes which will be similar. But it's not literally true to think that you will exist a year from now. There may be one or more people who are similar to you and who bear some causal connection to you a year from now, but you won't exist a year from now, and it would be a mistake to look forward to it. You're not a substantial, unified entity, really, any more than a cloud in the sky is. When you get up close, you see it's just water droplets. And not only you, but anything you care about, possessions, other people. It would be foolish to try to hold on to these things because they aren't lasting things. They're all impermanent. They're not literally the same from one moment to the next. Another prominent teaching in the early sutras is reincarnation, often described in Buddhism as rebirth. But because of the doctrine of no self, it is not to be understood as transmigration of souls, because there aren't any souls. A soul is a self, whether made of subtle matter or an immaterial self. That's the point of believing in souls. Souls are selves. They deny the existence of selves. That's denying the existence of souls. This is difficult to understand. This is a paradox. How can I be reborn in the next life if I'm impermanent, if I just reduce to these momentary entities? The view basically is that the skandhas that compose me, or that appear to compose me now, do cause in the next moment other skandhas, and so this process will continue. It'll even continue beyond my death. So the processes that are going on here and now in what I normally foolishly regard as me, those processes, even after I die, will continue. Even somehow the mental processes will continue. And they may, as it were, end up influencing other streams of mental processes. Wherever my mental processes somehow go, in those streams, those people, so to speak, would be considered my reincarnation. So when I die, really nothing has ceased to exist, but part of the flow are the mental occurrences going on within me. And these could end up affecting the mental lives of, let's say, 3 other people. Insofar as those mental streams really are affected somehow by my mental streams, then those would all count as my rebirth to some extent. So in Buddhism, there can be multiple people in the future who would count as your reincarnation or your rebirth. So just as in Hinduism, we're trapped in this realm, although again it's paradoxical, and just as in Hinduism, your good or bad actions influence how good of next life you get. If you're really bad, you may end up in a hell realm. If you're really good, you may end up as a god, as a deva. What would be best is if you could end up as a Buddhist monk, and then you'll really be able to walk the path and gain the cure to get nirvana. The 4 Noble Truths are another prominent teaching. They say life, that is everything in samsara, is suffering or dissatisfaction, dukkha. Not necessarily pain. Some say it's a feature of consciousness that pervades all of our experiences. Sometimes people might explain this as insecurity or a feeling of vulnerability, but it's something that characterizes all 5 skandhas. They're all dukkha. Second, the cause of suffering is craving. That is strong desire, tanha. Particularly the desire for individual existence, but also desire for possessions, pleasure, control. It's this craving that keeps us trapped in samsara. Third, to eliminate suffering, we must eliminate desire, gaining nirvana. And the way to eliminate desire is through the middle way. It's a middle between extremes. It's neither sensual indulgence and pleasure, like so many Americans are into, nor is it severe asceticism, where you starve yourself or only wear basic clothes or live as a hermit. It's neither of those. It's a middle way. It consists of following the Noble Eightfold Path, which is basically adopting the right beliefs and the right practices. And in the earliest Buddhism, specifically the lifestyle of a monk or nun. The 8 elements are right knowledge, intention, speech, behavior, effort, endeavor, contemplation, and mindfulness. And if you eliminate desire, you will get the cure propounded by the early Buddhist texts. In the next segment, we'll look at what that is supposed to be.